You know, it's interesting. People fear what they don't know, right? But in the past, when we didn't have such an easy time accessing information and having glimpses into other people's cultures and reality, you might be able to understand why people were so hostile towards each other, because people fear what they don't know. So why is it today then we have access, the internet, social media, and the means to have so much knowledge and information about these different people, places, culture, situations that we don't know about? Do people appear to be more hostile? I'm not sure. One of the things that we talked about in class today, I wanted to make this kind of its own video because it's different and bigger, I think, in a more practical sense. It was only 2 slides that Professor showed us on the screen. There are primary sources of these missionaries documenting their journey to India. As we see the diaries recorded and the things that they're writing throughout their experience, it changes, and there's a trajectory of thought that we see explained differently as time goes on. It happens across like 4 or 5 stages. Check this out. So we have first, right? There's the initial view. These are the assumptions that people have when they're talking about a culture before they're going into it. Oh, these people, words that we would see commonly. Granted, this is not every single missionary in this particular experience going out for the first time, but the majority of them, the trend that you would be able to see is them using words like these savages, unsaved, these immoral people. Look at these practices that these people are doing, kind of an estimation of what they might be doing because they're savages in darkness compared to us as the ones who are bringing the light. There was a lot of this kind of rhetoric. Those same missionaries, once they would get out into the places where they were going and have that initial encounter, a lot of the things that they would write down would confirm those assumptions. Affirm is a better word. They would affirm those assumptions, and we can trace that again through the things that they wrote. But over time, you'd start to see something different. As that initial encounter became a long-term encounter, what we would see from people who put themselves in the midst of other people, in the midst of something different, a different culture, a different experience, we would see the language shift again. They would be using words like, oh, well, even though this culture might be unsaved, there are a lot of morally good people here. You know, there might be some light in their teachings. It's not what we're teaching, but there's some light here. We can concede that. And in a lot of cases, they would even make statements. And again, this is documented. You can find this for yourself. Do the research. They would say, well, these people, in keeping up with the things that they believe, they're better than the Europeans. And these are Europeans who are writing this as they're reflecting on the differences in the cultures. From that initial view to their initial encounter, things stayed the same. But over time, as they spent more time in the unknown and got to know it more, the view changed. And so this is interesting because when those people would return back home, all of a sudden you see them writing and documenting their struggle with the former way that they used to view things. So there was a conflict, right? Where they would see all these other people as the unsaved, in darkness, immoral. Now there's a struggle of saying, well, wait a second. Why did we have all of this terminology and this perspective on these people before going out there when it turns out they weren't as lost as we thought? And it's interesting because a lot of their perspectives ended up changing from like this determinist view to more of accepting free will and saying, wait a second, maybe God is doing something different for different people at different times and in different ways. Their encounters with real people in real time force them to adjust their personal belief systems. People fear what they don't know. But a lot of times when you get to know or put yourself in the position to know, you realize that the thing you once feared or you had all these assumptions about may not be something that's that scary, and maybe something where there's some good there. So again, it's odd to me that today, when we have so much access to more people, more stories, more struggles, more information about others, the fear of the unknown seems to be higher in some regards and more dangerous on some other levels. It's interesting, the cycle and the circle that this put missionaries and institutions, sending institutions in. What we would see is that people would come back and have these questions about their own belief system and thinking, well, what's the point? We don't need to really send missionaries because these people aren't all that bad to begin with. It kind of led to a complacency in, do we continue to go? But maybe the big takeaway is maybe they were going for the wrong reason in the first place. The question of why go, you know, the same thing that we see reflected in the diaries of a lot of these missionaries over time. It's the same thing that I've heard from missionaries who have gone out recently. It's the same thing that I've heard from missionaries that I've been out in the field with myself. It's the same thing that I've experienced. We go out with this idea of oh, I'm out here to do this particular thing, and I'm out here to save these people. And it turns out that I'm the one who's experiencing the most change. In a nutshell, I think of my experience in Palau and how I was like, hey, let me go out here to go and serve these people. I feel like I was served more by the people than I could ever have served them. I joke all the time and say, well, it's not really a joke, it's for real. That's why I stayed so long. I tried to outgive them and I couldn't. They keep outgiving me. So if the purpose isn't necessarily to go and save people, it doesn't mean that there's no reason to go. Maybe the act of saving is bigger than just what I think I'm going to do to go save somebody else. Maybe in the act of going, in the attempt of serving and trying to live that way, I'm not only providing something that could be a benefit to someone else, but also a benefit to me. And maybe within the fact that God is the purveyor of salvation and not me, I can see myself being saved and other people being saved because we're all learning to serve together. That's the beauty of the mission mentality. And by no means am I saying I have this question all figured out, because there's so much more to get into. This is day one of the class. It's just raising more questions and makes me think like, okay, if this is more of what the experience is about, how do we talk about missions on the normal level? We're talking about it here with these awesome insights on the doctoral level, but everybody who's thinking of being a missionary doesn't get exposed to this. How can I take the things that I'm learning and the perspectives that I'm seeing, the mentalities that I'm getting to observe? How can I take those things and share it with somebody in a way that says, you know what, maybe I can change my outlook on this situation and see that, yeah, I'm not just going out here because I'm some great person who's gonna change the world, but maybe I'm going because there's a change that I need to experience as well. Maybe I'm going because I see something that's valuable to share. I think if more people believed in Jesus and treated people the way that Jesus did, the world would be a better place. But maybe there's something about the sharing of that and the wanting to pursue something better that enables for me to receive a blessing and to become a better person myself. What's the line? Where's the balance? How do we find the best way to engage in this activity where it's not me trying to save you, but it's also not me saying it's worthless to go? They already have everything they need. What's the reason behind going? What is it that we're looking to accomplish by going? And is that something that may need to change on a corporate level? Shoot, we've kind of seen how missions historically goes when it's on a corporate level. I think that's where the colonization and all that stuff comes in. But what would it look like even better to embrace these different perspectives on a personal level? How might that change the way that I take in the information I'm getting from social media? How might that change the intention with which I pursue information about different people and different cultures to learn more about them, so that way I don't have that fear about them anymore? How might that change my position as somebody who believes in God and is a follower of Christ, and how I relate to other people who on the surface may not appear that they are? It's a game changer. Just because someone says that they're a follower of Christ doesn't make them a Christian. And just because somebody says they've never heard of Jesus before doesn't mean they can't be a good person. We got to change our perspectives on these things. I love the question. And now synthesizing it back into a place where anybody can understand, that's a challenge, but that's the fun part. And I think that's where these studies become worth it. Hey, thanks for tuning in for this one. It's Buff Missionary again. We out here, and for now, we out. Looking forward to seeing what tomorrow holds. Peace.